Our former Vice President Joe Biden gave a boring yet horrific speech going into the holiday weekend. If Joe didn't appear to be slipping into dementia, this speech might be a little more concerning. Nonetheless, the speech provides insight into how the administration views half of America, and if you thought the possibility of civil war was a ridiculous idea, this speech should change your mind. So let's get into the final segment of the day. Dark Brandon.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
You know, I find it hilarious that the left is using a meme the right made up to make fun of Joe Biden. Dark Brandon. It started on Patriots.win, which is formerly known on Reddit as R the Donald. People started calling Joe that because it is amusing how he shakes his fists, says incoherent threats, and makes those strange faces. He's like, when he's angry, and when he's in those moods, he'll do shit like that. So the great people at Patriots.win gave a name to that particular mood. They called it Dark Brandon. Anyways, just a history lesson there, I guess. Before we get into Biden's speech in Pennsylvania, I want to jog your memory of what they were saying in 2016 when President Trump won the election.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup. So far, a bloodless coup engineered by Russia with, at best, the traitorous indifference of the Republican Party and Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase from another December long ago, will live in infamy. In 5 weeks' time, unless desperate measures are taken, we will hand over the government to a man who lost the popular vote by more than Woodrow Wilson or Jimmy Carter won it. A man whom the Russians wanted to run our country for them, a man whom the Russians got to run our country for them, a man for whom the Russians interfered with our elections, which if we did it to another country would be described as an act of war.
An act of
war! And in this country, we have conceded defeat.
No.
Some experts, John Kasich's strategist, John Weaver for one, have compared this to Pearl Harbor. Even the hard-right ex-Congressman Joe Walsh says Republican silence will be tantamount to treason. Some others, too, have proved courageous. Trump, self-destructive to the last, issued a childish statement mocking the CIA, but as Tim Dickinson of Rolling Stone noted, not denying anything. But the vast majority of Republicans have said nothing. And the vast majority of Democrats have said nothing. And the vast majority of the media has said nothing of substance. And the president has said nothing close to enough. The CIA and FBI and Homeland Security, the institutions whose interest in freedom we on the left most frequently distrust, they have said something. They said it first to congressional and Senate Republicans in September. Dire warnings. Warnings that Mitch McConnell and other Republicans reportedly buried. Warnings that the Russians, using computer hacking and perhaps other means, were not merely trying to discredit the election, but to achieve the specific outcome of electing their man Trump. And finally, at the very last hour, some of those who did those briefings and some of those who received those briefings leaked the details to the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, Reuters, in a torrent of anguished honesty. They said something. They said something as the president not elect began to veer towards appointing as Secretary of State, as our diplomatic face to the world, the CEO of Exxon, who 4 years ago received the Order of Friendship from Vladimir Putin. They said something as the members of the Electoral College prepared to gather next Monday to finalize this coup. Some, perhaps unaware that almost half the states they represent permit them by law to vote for someone other than the candidate to whom they are pledged, and that only 38 of them need to do so to prevent this coup.
You hear that? There it is. That's what they were saying in December of 2016. Because Russia hacked our servers and changed election results, Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. The coup attempt brought on by the Russians to install a president that will benefit them will crumble our democracy. He said at the last portion of that clip where I stopped it, 38 of the senators that meet on Monday after the election results need to vote against certifying election results to keep the Russian puppet that is Donald Trump out of the presidency. What Keith Olbermann said after the election in 2016 is the same thing I heard all throughout 2017, 2018, and 2019. No, from friends on Facebook, friends in real life, and to coworkers. I would get berated because I voted for Trump. I would hear constantly from them that Trump is a Russian puppet, the election was stolen, and Trump becoming president is the end of our democracy. And I didn't understand why they were saying this because my 401k had tripled from 2016 to 2019. My pay had significantly increased, things were getting cheaper, and my dollar went further. This is why I started paying more attention to politics, because I was being attacked by my peers, and I didn't understand why they thought Trump was so bad when things were going so good in America. When I got a little more knowledge under my belt and could push back against their opinionated attacks, they would get flustered and sound like this.
Now, how much worse can it get by telling America the unvarnished, unprocessed, unredacted truth about this coup? We are already on the precipice of losing the freedom and independence of the nation. He must tell us so that we may defend ourselves. He must tell the electors of the Electoral College so that, microscopic as the chance may be, they could still prevent this cataclysm. There is no time for a full review or a measured analysis or recommendations to prevent interference in our future elections, because permitting Donald Trump to assume the office of president reduces the chance that we will have any future elections. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum! Russian scum! As things are today, January 20th will not be an inauguration, but rather the end of the United States as an independent country. It will not be a peaceful change of power. It will be a usurpation, and the usurper has no validity, no credibility, and no authority under the Constitution. This is a reality that will become the only reality until this country rids itself of Donald John Trump. He is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin. And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country.
Traitors to this country. That brings us back to the good old days, guys. Back in 2016. That was being said throughout Trump's presidency, man. But everyone, I live in a very, very blue state. So if I even mentioned the name Trump, it would be like, oof, oof. And what's funny is even Hillary Clinton came out and said the election was stolen from her. And here's a clip of that.
I think it's also critical to understand that, as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
And there it is, huh? There it is, huh? So, the reason we are rolling through memory lane before we look at what Biden said in his speech is, what gives him the right to demonize half of America because they are skeptical of the 2020 election results? When half of America, as well as congressmen and women, questioned the results in 2016 and went so far as to open up investigations into the sitting president we later found out were false, what gives him the right to say this?
But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight, I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. We must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment. that began more than 2 centuries ago. We, the people, have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here
And if
at
you
Independence
guys can
Hall.
probably see it now,
A flame
right above my head.
that lit our way
right there.
through abolition, the Civil
Look how
War,
fucking white his gloves are. And
suffrage,
look, you see that
the Great
circle around
Depression,
it? That's a mask.
World Wars.
And I don't know if
civil
you guys can
rights.
see it yet, but they're changing
That
the colors
sacred flame
behind
still burns.
the
Now in our time, as
the
we
Marines
build
there.
an America that is more
The
prosperous,
color's slowly changing, and it's not
free
that they're
and
changing the
just.
colors there. It's CNN
That is the
or
work of my
was
presidency.
sitting there, or whoever's
mission
broadcasting this started changing
I
the colors
believe in
themselves.
with my
It's
whole
odd.
soul.
But because it looks fucking weird
But first,
with him having that fucking red
must be honest with each other.
background behind him.
And with
It's almost
ourselves.
authoritarian fascist.
Too much of what's
No,
happening in our
actually,
country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans.
Yeah, what mainstream
there's no
Republicans? Like
question
Liz Cheney?
That the Republican Party
Neocons?
today is dominated, driven, and
The
intimidated
Uniparty
by
Republicans?
Donald Trump
Get the
and the
fuck outta
MAGA
here, dude.
Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America or blue America, but of all America. And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution.
MAGA Republicans.
They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies.
No, that's
Empowering
the
election
Democrats
deniers
putting money
to undermine
into the
democracy
political
itself.
opponents because they want to run against those
MAGA
people.
forces are determined
They've been putting money
take
into
this country backwards.
MAGA Republicans. The
backwards
Democrats
to
have.
an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no
Okay.
right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
It's not true.
They promote authoritarian
Fucking-
leaders,
none
and
of
they
that's true.
fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people.
I think you can see
This
the mask
time,
better right there. Look at that.
They're determined
It's
to
a mask.
succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a
Maggie.
clear
Can't even say
and present
it.
danger
MAGA
to our
Republicans.
democracy.
Fucking Christ.
But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it.
There we go, huh? The fuck, dude. I remember watching that day of. I went outside when I was out on my break, and it just started. And I made it to that point, and I shut it off because it pissed me off. You know, he didn't even make it 5 minutes without demonizing half of America. You know, he said MAGA Republicans. What does that mean? MAGA Republicans. Because 74 million people voted for Trump. And if you don't believe me, here's a fact-checked article from USA Today. They say there were 159 million registered voters. Out of those voters, 74 million voted for Trump. And if we scroll down here, they say that right there. Boom. No. It's fucking, it makes me mad, man. It makes me mad. He is saying those 74 million, including me, are a threat to democracy. What is the extreme ideology held by MAGA Republicans? Republicans, not rhinos, believe in free speech, the right to own a firearm, the right to choose, border security, parental rights, and the end of war. Odd. Is that radical? No, and if you want to argue against the right to choose and bring up abortion, then I will tell you that that does not fall underneath the right to choose, because you are dealing with two human beings at that point, and you do not have the right to choose the rights for another human being. No, if you want to bring up exceptions, I'm all ears, because I do think there should be exceptions. No, and fuck Biden for saying we don't respect the Constitution. The Democratic Party does not respect the Constitution. All you have to do is look at their view on the Second Amendment. On his point with MAGA Republicans don't respect the will of the people on the results of the election, go fuck yourself. I just showed you what they were saying in 2016. Rules for thee, but not for me. Now, finally, he has the audacity to speak out about what happened on Jan 6th. What about the Summer of Love? In 2020, they burnt down cities. Within those cities, they tried to raid the police departments. They tried to burn down Capitol buildings. They burnt down privately owned businesses, lit cop cars on fire, and put communities in financial deficits. That went on for a little over a year. But the Jan 6th was the worst thing that happened. Cool. Jesus, dude. Biden is playing a dangerous game with this speech. No, I thought the idea of civil war was silly, but an interesting thing to talk about, at most a situation to entertain because of America's current situation. But after this speech, I'm starting to think it might be a possibility. No, Joe Biden was supposed to be the president who brought America together, but he is now dividing America, and it's perfectly said by himself.
I know so many Americans are suffering loss of a loved one, suffering economic hardship. The country is crying out for leadership that can unite us, leadership that brings us together. That's what the presidency is. The duty to care for all of us, not just those who vote for us, but all of us. But I promise you this, I won't traffic in fear and division. I won't fan the flames of hate. I'll seek to heal the racial wounds that have long plagued our country, not use them for political gain. I'll do my job and I will take responsibility. I won't blame others. You know, I've said from the outset of this election that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. What we believe, and maybe most importantly, who we want to be, it's all at stake. We stand together, finally as one America, we'll rise stronger than we were before. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
What happened to that? What happened to that? He had a chance in that speech he was giving the day before the holiday weekend to come out and say something that to unite, the country. He could have came out and said, hey, with all this divisiveness going on, we should come together and try and, maybe pass some shit so that way we can start moving forward and we need to stop hating each other. Something, just something. Yeah, he goes there and blames half of America. It doesn't make any fucking sense, dude. Why now? Right before the fucking midterms are coming up. That was a very, very harmful thing to the Democratic Party coming into the midterms. And I don't know what is going to happen in these coming weeks, but I say bring on the indictments. Indict Trump, please do. A Trump indictment will be the end of the Biden administration. Nothing will come of it. Trump will just get another card to play. It will be the best thing that would aid Trump's 2024 campaign because he will get to say that he tried to put me in jail for fake news, but I persevered, America won, and we will win in 2024. Bring it on. A Trump indictment will show that Biden not only knew about the raid on Mar-a-Lago, but he pushed for it. The only way Trump can be indicted for having classified documents is if Biden overruled Trump's executive privilege and reclassified the documents currently in Trump's possession. That would then mean Trump would need to be notified that Biden reclassified those documents and they need to be returned. But that never happened, and Trump complied with the National Archive about those documents. The FBI visited Mar-a-Lago to view those documents, and if they were so top secret, why not take them then? And it's probably because Trump has executive privilege, and he told them, I declassified these. And to those who say Trump never complied with the National Archive, you are full of shit, and this proves it. So, on April 12, 2022, NARA notified plaintiff that it intended to provide the 15 boxes to the Federal Bureau of Investigation the following week. Plaintiff then requested an extension on the contemplated delivery so that he could determine the existence of any privileged material. The White House counsel's office granted the request. NRA informed plaintiff that it would proceed with providing the FBI access to the records in question as requested by the incumbent president, being as early as Thursday, May 12th of 2022. The government's filing states that the FBI did not obtain access to the 15 boxes until approximately May 18th. On May 11th, 2022, during the period of an ongoing communication between the plaintiff and the NARA, and before DOJ received the 15 boxes, DOJ obtained a grand jury subpoena for which plaintiff's counsel accepted service. Subpoena was directed to the custodian of records for the office of Donald J. Trump and requested any and all documents or writings in the custody or control of Donald J. Trump and or the office of Donald J. Trump bearing classification markings. Plaintiff contacted DOJ on June 2nd, 2022 and requested that the FBI agents visit his residence the following day to pick up responsive documents. Upon the FBI's arrival, plaintiff's team handed over documents and permitted the three FBI agents and accompanying DOJ attorney to visit the storage room where the documents were held. Is that not complying? If Trump is indicted, it would force the FBI to reveal why they did not take said classified documents right then and there. And I guarantee you, they will say, well, Trump has executive privilege. And then the follow-up question would be, what changed? The only person who can change that is Biden himself. That would destroy Biden's chances of obtaining a second term. Politics are not won by pandering to your own party. You win the political game by convincing independents to vote for you. Trump knows this, and so does Biden. And right now, Biden is sinking within the independent voter. YouGov, Biden approval rating among independents hits new low. Independents approved 26.7%. Disapproval is 64.1%. Jesus. No, and if that speech did that, the Biden's approval rating amongst the independents, could you imagine what would happen if it comes out that Biden is using governmental agencies to attack a political opponent? It would be devastating, is what it would be. Republicans need to capitalize on this speech and put an end to Dark Brandon. Otherwise, we will continue to hear shit like this.
My friend Matthew Dowd, our friend, talked about this. He couldn't be more right. The 1-6 attack for the future of the country is a profoundly more dangerous event than the 9/11 attacks.
What?
And in the end,
how can you compare the two?
Attacks are likely to kill a lot more Americans than were killed on the 9/11 attacks, which will include the casualties of the wars that lasted 20 years following it. We have had periods of political violence in this country, and I believe we're on the edge of another one, tragically. And we have to fight back against it at the ballot box.
Jesus, dude. Can you believe that shit? Can you believe that? How can you say that? How can you say that Jan 6th was worse than 9/11? They're trying to make Republicans terrorists. They want to make it illegal to be conservative. They want to scare us into submission so they can remind us why we need them. They want us to understand that we will own nothing and be happy. And that ends the segment.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.